A group of billionaires is impressed by how you succeeded after this monstrous betrayal. The truth does not knock politely on the door of your illusions. Sometimes it kicks the door completely off the hinges, shatters the windows, and demands that every single person in the room strip off their masks and reveal exactly what they have been hiding in the dark. Most people do not actually hate intelligence. They do not hate resilience. And they certainly do not hate raw, authentic, spiritual power. What they absolutely despise is what your intelligence, your resilience, and your authentic power make them feel about their own chosen stagnation. They hate the mirror you hold up simply by existing in a state of pure alignment. Welcome, chosen ones. If you are hearing these words, you are likely standing in the aftermath of a crucible that was meticulously designed to annihilate you. You have recently walked through the fire of a monstrous betrayal, a deeply calculated, highly orchestrated, and intimately cruel sabotage meant to completely obliterate your spirit and sideline you from your destiny forever. The individuals who plotted this downfall were absolutely certain they had written the final, tragic chapter of your life. They expected you to break, to bleed out publicly, and to surrender your future to their malice. But instead of folding into the darkness, you alchemized the trauma. You took the absolute worst poison they could manufacture and used it as the premium fuel for a comeback so massive, so undeniably staggering, that it has completely altered the trajectory of your existence. And now, you find yourself in an incredibly surreal position. Your unprecedented success has not just proven your betrayal is wrong. It has caught the attention of the absolute highest echelons of thinkers, creators, and visionaries. A group of billionaires, elite minds, and apex architects of reality are looking at your journey with profound, undeniable respect. They are genuinely impressed by how you succeeded after this monstrous betrayal. Meanwhile, the insecure, highly performative people who orchestrated your downfall are experiencing a complete, frantic, psychological meltdown, watching you ascend to rooms they can never enter. Let us break down exactly why their performative reality is collapsing while your authentic empire is rising. Let us begin. Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, drop a comment with what point hit you hardest, and share this video with someone who needs the reminder. Number 1. They calculated your ruin based entirely on their own fragile survival metrics, failing to comprehend that you operate on a completely different plane of spiritual physics. When toxic, deeply insecure people orchestrate a monstrous betrayal, they do not assess the situation objectively. They project their own weak emotional architecture onto you. They looked at the trap they were setting. They calculated the resources they were attempting to strip from you, and they measured the reputation they were trying to ruin. They thought to themselves that if this exact scenario happened to them, they would simply give up, collapse, and fade into obscurity. They measured the weight of the destruction they were causing, and calculated that it would be a fatal blow to you, precisely because they know, deep in their own quiet moments of existential dread, that they do not possess the internal scaffolding to survive that kind of hit. Their entire existence is a carefully curated facade, built entirely on borrowed validation, stolen concepts, and a relentless, exhausting need for external approval. If you strip all of that away from them, there is nothing underneath but a shivering, terrified void. But you, as a chosen one, have an internal foundation that they cannot even begin to comprehend. Your strength is not rented. Your power is not leased from the opinions of the crowd. We must contrast your authentic, hard-earned, internal alignment with their borrowed, insecure, performative facade. You are stacking solid bricks on unshakable ground, while they are frantically stacking wet cards on a windy table, desperately trying to keep their fragile narrative intact. Their behavior right now is frantic because they are terrified of your resilience. The deep psychology driving their meltdown is an agonizing fear of stagnation and a complete loss of control over the script they desperately need you to follow. They relied on a script where they were the conquerors and you were the casualty. By surviving, you ripped that script to shreds. From the outside looking in, this dynamic looks entirely goofy and profoundly tragic. They are acting like someone wearing incredibly heavy, fake jewelry they absolutely cannot afford, desperately hoping the sheer shine of the cubic zirconia will blind the world to their moral bankruptcy. They are haunted by the realization that they never expected you to survive long enough to see their true faces, and now that you have, they have no idea how to handle the terrifying, battle-hardened version of you that emerged from the fire. They see the confidence, but not the internal battles. They see the calm, but not the resilience. And it is entirely destroying them from the inside out. Number 2, you forcefully make these individuals confront the undeniable intelligence, potential, and spiritual depth that they actively abandoned in themselves long ago. The reason your staggering success after this monstrous betrayal is so deeply and violently triggering to them is that your upward trajectory holds up a high-definition, inescapable mirror to their own pathetic stagnation. When you look closely at the people who attempted to take you down, you are not looking at masters of the universe. You are looking at deeply flawed individuals who traded their own authentic potential for the cheap, temporary comfort of conformity, gossip, and manipulation. They took the easy road. They chose the path of least resistance, relying entirely on alliances of convenience, whispering behind closed doors, and trying to orchestrate outcomes through deceit, rather than earning them through genuine merit and hard work. You, on the other hand, took the brutal, lonely, and agonizing path of true spiritual alignment. You chose to do the heavy, internal work. You sat with your shadows. You processed your grief without broadcasting it to the world, and you built your competence drop by drop, hour by grueling hour. Let us deeply contrast your authentic, hard-earned, internal alignment with their borrowed, insecure, performative facade. You are generating your own light from an internal fusion reactor of purpose, while they are running around with a stolen flashlight whose batteries are rapidly dying. When a group of high-level observers, those literal and metaphorical billionaires of industry, intellect, and spirit, look at you, they do not just see your current financial or social success. They see the immense, unshakable grit it took to get there. They recognize a peer. They recognize someone who speaks the rare, exclusive language of survival, endurance, and transformation. Your betrayers, however, are forced to watch this high-level validation from the cheap seats. The deep psychology of their current panic is anchored in their massive, suffocating fear of stagnation. They are terrified of irrelevance, yet they are completely paralyzed by it. They try to perform success, puffing out their chests and loudly broadcasting their minor manufactured wins to anyone who will listen, but they look entirely goofy and frantic doing it. They look like a child wearing their parents' oversized suit, dragging a plastic briefcase around and demanding to be taken seriously in a boardroom full of titans. It is tragic because their fragile ego cannot comprehend why their script is failing. They relied on a script where your destruction would artificially elevate their status. By refusing to be destroyed, you completely revoked their access to your energy. They see the success, but not the sacrifice. They see the elevation, but not the excruciating isolation. They hate you, not because of what you did to them, but because your sheer existence proves that everything they gave up on was actually entirely possible if they had just been brave enough to do the work. You are the walking, breathing, undeniable manifestation of their road not taken. Number 3. Your absolute refusal to seek messy public revenge completely destroyed their psychological script and left them paranoid, shadowboxing against an enemy that refuses to enter the ring. When toxic, highly performative people plot a monstrous betrayal, they're not just looking to hurt you. They are meticulously trying to control your reaction. They want you to become unhinged. They desperately need you to lash out, to scream, to post frantic messages online, and to sink down into the mud with them. Why? Because if you sink into the mud, it entirely justifies their betrayal in their twisted minds. If you become a monster in response to their monstrous actions, they can point their trembling fingers and say to their toxic echo chamber, "Look, see? We were right about them all along. They are crazy. They are dangerous. They need you to lose your mind so they can securely cement their position as the innocent victims or the righteous heroes of their own fabricated story. But you denied them that satisfaction. You completely and utterly starved them of the dramatic, chaotic reaction they so desperately needed to feed their fragile, parasitic egos. Instead of declaring a loud, public war, you embraced a terrifying, absolute silence. You took the betrayal, processed the heartbreak in the privacy of your own sanctuary, and then you simply turned your back and started building your empire. Let us heavily contrast your profound emotional regulation with their frantic, dysregulated need for drama. Your silence is anchored in deep self-trust and an authentic, hard-earned internal alignment. Their noise is anchored in deep insecurity and a borrowed performative facade. This complete lack of retaliation has caused a catastrophic short circuit in their minds. The deep psychology driving them mad right now is their profound, terrifying loss of control. In their deeply paranoid minds, your silence is not peace. To them, your silence is a loaded gun. Because they operate exclusively through manipulation and deceit, they naturally assume you are simply waiting for the perfect, most devastating moment to destroy them. They are entirely reliant on a script of mutual destruction, a script you refuse to follow. Metaphorically, they are desperately trying to hold a door shut against a raging monster they believe is on the other side, completely unaware that you have already left the building and moved to a different city. From the outside, it is a truly tragic, goofy spectacle to observe. They are constantly checking your pages, asking about you through mutual acquaintances, obsessively monitoring your upward trajectory, forever waiting for the attack that is never coming. They see the peace, but not the boundaries. They see the distance, but not the profound healing. You have placed them in a psychological prison of their own making, simply by outgrowing the need to prove anything to them. Number 4, they are currently suffocating under the crushing weight of the heavy, performative masks they are forced to wear to maintain their illusion of innocence. When a group of people conspire to commit a monstrous betrayal against a chosen one, they have to invent a massive, complex, and highly fragile lie to justify it to the rest of the world. They have to paint you as the villain and themselves as the righteous victims. The fundamental problem with building a reality entirely out of lies is that it requires an immense, continuous, and exhausting output of energy to keep it from collapsing. They have to wake up every single morning and consciously remember exactly who they are pretending to be. They have to coordinate their stories, police their own behavior, and constantly monitor the people around them to ensure no one is catching on to the truth. It is a soul-crushing, incredibly taxing way to live. But you get to simply wake up and exist. You are living in total, unapologetic alignment with the truth. We must look at the stark contrast between your effortless, authentic internal alignment and their grueling, borrowed, and highly insecure facade. You do not have to remember any lies. You do not have to wear any masks, and you do not have to perform for anyone to validate your worth. The sheer ease with which you move through the world is a glaring, agonizing contrast to their frantic, tightly wound, anxiety-ridden existence. As your success continues to blossom, and you are openly recognized by billionaires and people operating at the highest levels of integrity and power, the pressure on your betrayers intensifies exponentially. The gap between their fake negative narrative about you and the undeniable blinding reality of your success is becoming impossible for them to bridge. The deep psychology at play here is a profound, suffocating fear of exposure and a total loss of control. Their fragile ego is terrifyingly dependent on a script where everyone believes their lies. They are terrified that at any moment the house of cards is going to collapse, and they will be exposed to their peers as the insecure, manipulative frauds they truly are. Metaphorically, they are trying to patch 1,000 holes in a sinking ship using nothing but wet paper towels while you are cruising by in a massive, unsinkable yacht you built with your own 2 hands. Their fear of exposure is a cold, dark shadow that follows them into every room they enter. They see the effortless movement, but not the unshakable truth. They see the glory, but not the absolute purity of intention. From the outside, their frantic attempts to keep their story straight look incredibly goofy and profoundly tragic. They are prisoners of their own performance, constantly acting in a play where they are the only ones who don't realize the audience has already left the theater. Number 5, you executed the ultimate spiritual alchemy by transforming their absolute worst poison into the premium fuel for your highest elevation. The people who betrayed you fundamentally misunderstand the nature of a chosen one, and they completely fail to grasp the mechanics of spiritual warfare. They think that trauma is a stopping point. For them, a major setback is an immediate excuse to quit, an excuse to become a permanent victim, and a convenient reason to lower their standards for the rest of their lives. When they poured their concentrated poison into your life, they fully expected you to drink it and die. But you did not die. You metabolized the venom. You took the intense isolation they forced upon you and turned it into an exclusive, high-level laboratory of genius. You took the blatant disrespect they showed you and turned it into an unbreakable titanium standard for your boundaries. You took the resources they stole from you and realized you did not need them anyway, because you are the ultimate resource. Let us contrast your authentic, hard-earned, internal alignment with their borrowed, insecure, performative facade. You are a sovereign creator who alchemizes pain into power. They are desperate consumers who drown in the very toxicity they create. This alchemy is profoundly terrifying to a toxic mind. It completely shatters their entire understanding of reality. They operate in a world of zero-sum games, where if they take from you, they assume you have less. They do not understand that you operate from a divine source of infinite supply. When you bounce back from a monstrous betrayal, you're not just recovered, but exponentially more powerful, smarter, richer, and more spiritually aligned. It triggers a catastrophic psychological meltdown in them. The deep psychology here is driven by their profound fear of stagnation and their horrifying realization of their complete loss of control. Their fragile ego relied heavily on a script where they were the powerful architects of your demise. They realize, to their absolute horror, that they accidentally served as the catalyst for your greatest evolution. Metaphorically, they thought they were burying you under 6 feet of suffocating dirt, completely unaware that you were a rare seed that only germinates under immense pressure and total darkness. Now they are forced to watch you bloom into something magnificent, knowing that they provided the very soil for your growth. It looks incredibly goofy and frantic from the outside as they attempt to claim credit for a resilience they actively tried to destroy. They see the power but not the alchemy. They see the triumph but not the dark nights of the soul. The billionaires and elite minds entering your orbit see this transformation clearly, rendering your betrayals entirely irrelevant, choking on the exhaust fumes of your skyrocketing trajectory. Number 6. They are desperately trying to mimic your new frequency, but they completely lack the internal architecture to sustain the performance. As your success continues to compound and high-level people begin to open massive doors for you, your betrayers are realizing that they are being left behind in the dust of their own mediocrity. Their immediate, panic-driven response is to try and aggressively copy your exact moves. You will notice them suddenly adopting your vocabulary, trying to enter the same professional or creative spaces as you, or suddenly attempting to project this zen, unbothered, highly spiritual persona. But it is all a clumsy, transparent, and deeply embarrassing performance. We must contrast your organic, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their frantic, borrowed, insecure, and externally validated facade. They are watching your external actions, completely blind to the internal alignment that powers them. They see the calm, but they do not see the resilience. They see the confidence, but they do not see the agonizing internal battles you fought to secure it. They see the final polished product of your success, but they know absolutely nothing about the sweat, the tears, and the sheer force of will it took to forge it. The deep psychology driving them is a desperate need to hijack your destination without walking your path. They are terrified of their own stagnation, so they try to steal your momentum. They suffer from a fragile ego that simply cannot accept that they are not special, so they attempt to wear your skin to feel important. They rely on a script of imitation because they have zero original substance. Metaphorically, they are acting like a common thief who stole a master musician's priceless violin, walking out onto a grand stage in front of an elite audience and suddenly realizing they have absolutely no idea how to read sheet music. They can hold the instrument, they can strike the pose, but when they try to play, all that comes out is a screeching, horrific noise that instantly exposes them as a complete fraud. This is the tragic, goofy reality of the imitator, the billionaires and the elite minds who are validating your success right now have highly tuned instincts. They can spot a fraud from a mile away. They look at your betrayers and see right through the cheap veneer. Your enemies know this too. They can feel the audience turning away from them. Their performance is becoming more frantic, more desperate, and increasingly pathetic, because they are exhausting themselves trying to manually sustain a frequency that you emit naturally just by breathing. They see the glow, but not the power source. They see the shine, but not the diamond. Number 7. The sheer monstrosity of their betrayal was, in reality, a massive, involuntary confession of their own extreme inferiority. You have to step back and ask yourself a fundamental psychological question. Why do people betray others? Healthy, aligned, confident people do not spend their time plotting the downfall of their peers. People who are secure in their own value, who trust their own abilities, compete fairly, or they choose to collaborate. Betrayal is the ultimate weapon of the coward. It is the specific strategy deployed by those who look at the battlefield, assess their own skills, look at your skills, and immediately realize they cannot possibly win in a fair fight. They looked at your light, your raw talent, your charisma, and your undeniable connection to the divine, and it terrified them to their absolute core. They realized that in any room where you both stood, you would naturally command the respect and the authority that they desperately crave, but cannot organically generate. Let us contrast your innate, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their forced, insecure, performative facade. You walk into a room and naturally shift the atmosphere. They walk into a room and have to beg, manipulate, and lie to be noticed. Because they could not rise to your level, they decided to cheat. The deep psychology behind their betrayal is a fragile ego desperately trying to avoid a total loss of control. They are terrified of their own stagnation and inferiority, so they rely on a script that says bringing you down will magically elevate them. But here is the magnificent irony that is currently destroying their peace of mind. By betraying you so monstrously, they essentially signed a written confession of their own inferiority and handed it directly to the universe. Metaphorically, it is like watching someone who cannot run a mile secretly slashing the tires of a champion marathon runner's car, completely unaware that the champion is just going to lace up their shoes and run to the finish line anyway. It is undeniably goofy. It is deeply tragic. When the elite observers, the billionaires and apex players, look at the dynamic between you and your betrayers, the math is incredibly simple. The betrayers look small, petty, and incredibly weak, while you look like an absolute titan who cannot be killed. Your betrayers are realizing that the very act they thought would secure their dominance is the exact thing that permanently seals their reputation as bottom feeders. They are suffocating under the weight of their own actions, trapped in a cage of mediocrity that they lock from the inside. They see the victory, but not the character. They see the crown, but not the heavy burden of leadership. Number 8. Your season of intense isolation became an impenetrable fortress that they could never infiltrate, leaving them entirely blind to your next moves. When they orchestrated this monstrous betrayal, their primary foundational strategy was excommunication. They wanted to isolate you, to turn people against you, to make you feel completely alone, abandoned by the world, and stripped of your support system. They believed that by cutting you off from the herd, you would starve. The deep psychology here reveals everything about them and absolutely nothing about you. They rely completely on the herd for their identity, their validation, and their sense of safety. So they naturally assume that being cast out is a fatal death sentence. Contrast your ability to thrive in authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their desperate, borrowed, insecure, and performative need for a crowd. You do not derive your strength from the applause of the masses. When they pushed you into the wilderness, you did not wander aimlessly. You built a kingdom. You used that profound, heavy isolation to completely detox from their low vibrational energy. You used the quiet to hear the voice of the divine with absolute clarity. You studied, you planned, you healed, and you leveled up in ways they could not even monitor. Because they had cut you off, they lost their surveillance access to your life. They had absolutely no idea what you were building in the dark. The psychological terror they are experiencing right now stems from a massive loss of control and a crippling fear of their own stagnation. Their fragile ego relied on a script where they could predict your failure. When you finally emerged, entirely transformed, operating at a level that attracts billionaires and true visionaries, it hit them like a freight train out of nowhere. The shock to their system was monumental. Metaphorically, they thought they locked you in a dark, empty basement to rot, entirely unaware that the basement was filled with the exact raw materials you needed to build a tunnel to the palace. Now, they are desperately trying to gather information on you, sending flying monkeys, creating fake accounts, trying to peek over the massive walls you have built. But it is entirely useless. It looks frantically goofy and overwhelmingly tragic. You have placed them in a state of permanent psychological quarantine, and the realization that they can never again touch the hem of your garment is driving them absolutely insane. They see the fortress, but not the bricks. They see the kingdom, but not the lonely nights of construction. Number 9. They are realizing that stealing your external blueprint did absolutely nothing to give them your internal anointing. One of the most common, deeply pathetic behaviors you will see after a massive betrayal by insecure people is their immediate attempt to step into the void they created by removing you. They want to take over your role, claim your ideas as their own, and adopt the exact vision you were building before they stabbed you in the back. They fundamentally believe that success is just a matter of mechanics. If they just do the things you were doing, they will get the results you were getting. They view life and success as a simple, emotionless equation. But they completely forgot to factor in the soul. Let us contrast your divinely inspired, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their soulless, borrowed, insecure, and performative replication. They stole the blueprint to the house, but they do not possess the materials to build it, nor do they hold the deed to the land. When they attempt to execute your vision, everything falls incredibly flat. The energy is entirely off. The charisma is forced and cringeworthy. The results are entirely mediocre. The deep psychology driving their madness is a complete loss of control over the narrative and a terrifying fear of their own inherent stagnation. Their fragile ego relied on a script that said, "Your magic was easily replicable." They are standing there, reading from the exact same script you wrote, wondering why the audience is not clapping, why the money is not flowing, and why the heavy hitters of the industry are completely ignoring them. The answer is simple, yet it is a truth they will fight to their dying breath to avoid admitting. It was never about the blueprint. It was always about you. Metaphorically, they are acting like someone who stole the paintbrush of a master artist, staring at a blank canvas in absolute horror, as they realize the genius was never in the brush, but in the mind and spirit of the one holding it. It is undeniably goofy. It is deeply tragic. The billionaires and high-level observers instantly feel the lack of substance. They recognize that these betrayers are hollow vessels, echoing with the sounds of stolen ambition. Meanwhile, you have moved on to entirely new blueprints, creating fresh, innovative magic out of thin air, proving once again that your well never runs dry. They see the blueprint, but not the architect. They see the vision, but not the anointing. They are frantically fighting over the dry, dusty scraps you left behind while you feast at the banquet of your own creation. Number 10. You have exposed the collective delusion of their toxic echo chamber, proving that a lone wolf walking in truth is infinitely stronger than a pack of cowards hiding in a lie. When insecure people plot a betrayal, they rarely, if ever, do it alone. They need accomplices. They require a chorus of validating voices to tell them that what they are doing is right, justified, and necessary. They form these little toxic alliances, binding themselves together through shared jealousy, mutual insecurity, and a collective hatred of your light. Within their closed circle, their lies become their reality. They convince each other that you are the problem, that you are weak, and that their collective action will permanently silence you. We must contrast your solitary, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their fragile, codependent, borrowed, and insecure facade. You stood alone in the fire and did not burn, while they have to hold hands just to walk in the shade. The deep psychology of the mob is that they rely on the illusion of numbers to feel strong, because individually they are profoundly weak and terrified of stagnation. Their fragile ego necessitates a script where the majority is always right, even when the majority is completely toxic. But the universe does not respect a lie, no matter how many people are whispering it. Your undeniable explosive success post-betrayal has violently pierced the bubble of their echo chamber, causing a catastrophic loss of control. The reality of your rise is simply too massive to be ignored or spun into a negative narrative. As you gain the respect of billionaires and people who operate at a level they cannot even fathom, the cracks in their group delusion are starting to form. Metaphorically, they are like a group of people huddled together in a dark cave, constantly telling each other that the sun does not exist, until you blast the roof off the cave with dynamite, flooding their pathetic existence with blinding, undeniable daylight. It looks incredibly goofy and tragic to watch them frantically squinting, trying to cover their eyes from the truth. They are beginning to look at each other with suspicion, quietly realizing that they all bet their reputations on the wrong horse. The false solidarity they built is crumbling under the weight of your actual, measurable success. They thought there was absolute safety in numbers, but you have proven that there is absolute, terrifying power in solitary truth. They see the crowd, but not the courage. They see the numbers, but not the integrity. Watching their little alliances fracture and turn on each other as the pressure mounts is a perfect demonstration of the fragility of a bond built purely on malice. Number 11. You have forced them to endure the ultimate karmic retribution, which is watching you achieve the exact life they tried to permanently deny you. There is absolutely no punishment more severe, no torture more agonizing for a hateful, envious person than being forced to become a spectator to the glorious, undeniable triumph of the person they tried to destroy. They wanted to write you out of the script entirely. They wanted you to be a cautionary tale, a sad memory they could occasionally bring up to feel better about their own mediocre, stagnant lives. Instead, you have become the main character of a blockbuster success story, and they are permanently trapped in the audience, completely unable to look away. Contrast your expansive, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their claustrophobic, borrowed, insecure, and performative vexation. You are looking forward to the limitless future. They are looking backward, obsessively fixated on you. The deep psychology behind their absolute meltdown is a paralyzing fear of stagnation and a devastating loss of control. Their fragile ego relied heavily on a script where they were the arbiters of your destiny. Every new milestone you hit, every new room you enter, every elite connection you make is a direct, agonizing blow to them. They have to watch you being celebrated by billionaires, industry titans, and people who possess real, unshakable power, knowing full well that they can never, ever enter those rooms. Metaphorically, it is like they intentionally locked you out of a dirty, decaying shed in the freezing rain, only to watch from the window as you are immediately picked up by a private helicopter and flown to a luxury estate. It is the most goofy, frantic, and tragic position they could possibly find themselves in. They have to watch you living in a state of abundance, peace, and total fulfillment, while they are stuck in the exact same miserable, stagnant energy they were in when they betrayed you. This is the tragic consequence of building a life based on destroying others rather than doing the heavy internal work to elevate yourself. You never have to lift a single finger against them. You never have to plot a counterattack. Your absolute best revenge is simply drawing breath, living exceptionally well, and succeeding wildly. They bet everything on your destruction, and they lost spectacularly. Now they are drowning in the heavy debt of their own bad karma, desperately trying to maintain a facade of happiness. They see the destination, but not the journey. They see the triumph, but not the tears. The psychological torment of this dynamic is absolute, and it is a prison entirely of their own design. Number 12. They thought that by stripping you of your external resources, they would successfully strip you of your core identity, failing to realize that you are the resource. The fundamental flaw in the thinking of highly performative, externally driven people is that they completely confuse the accessories of success with the source of success. When they committed this monstrous betrayal against you, they likely targeted the things they could touch: your money, your position, your network, your projects, or your public standing. They assumed that your power resided in those external things, because that is exactly how it works for them. If you take away their job title, their expensive clothes, or their social circle, they immediately cease to exist as a person of value. They have absolutely no internal anchor. Let us contrast your indestructible, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their superficial, borrowed, insecure, and performative worth. You are not powerful because of what you hold in your hands. You are powerful because of what you hold in your spirit. The deep psychology driving their behavior is an absolute terror of their own internal emptiness and a desperate need to maintain control over external variables. Their fragile ego relies on a script that equates material possessions with spiritual authority. When they took away your external advantages, they expected you to crumble into dust. Instead, you simply went inward, tapped into the divine source, and regenerated everything they took, but better, stronger, and completely out of their reach. This completely baffles them and triggers a frantic, tragic response. Metaphorically, they're like foolish lumberjacks who gleefully cut off all the branches of a mighty oak tree, completely ignorant of the massive, sprawling, indestructible root system thriving deep underground. They are watching you grow entirely new branches, creating new wealth, new connections, and new art, and they are left scratching their heads in absolute disbelief. It looks incredibly goofy. The elite minds, the billionaires, and the true architects of reality understand this concept intimately. They know that true wealth is a mindset, an internal architecture that can survive any external catastrophe. When they look at you, they see an equal, someone who carries their immense value within them. Your betrayers are stuck in the shallow end of the pool, fighting over plastic toys, completely unaware that you have become the entire ocean. They see the abundance, but not the source. They see the fruit, but not the roots. You have proven that they can take absolutely everything from you, and you will simply build it all again. Number 13. The billionaires and elite observers recognize you as an absolute peer, while your betrayers have permanently relegated themselves to the embarrassing role of fans in denial. There is a specific, undeniable frequency that true champions, innovators, and survivors operate on. It is a frequency born of immense pain, relentless discipline, and an unshakable belief in a higher purpose. When you encounter someone else who operates on that level, an immediate, unspoken respect is formed. You do not need to explain your trauma to them. They see the scar tissue, and they deeply honor it. The high-level people who are currently impressed by your success are not just looking at your bank account or your resume. They are looking directly at your unshakable spirit. Contrast this mutual, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with the parasitic, borrowed, insecure, and performative observation of your enemies. The elite are inviting you to the table because you have earned your seat through undeniable trial by fire. Your betrayers, however, are operating on the lowest possible frequency. They are consumers, not creators. By constantly obsessing over your every move, searching your name, analyzing your success, and seething with jealousy in the shadows, they have unintentionally become your most dedicated, albeit highly toxic, fan base. The deep psychology of this shift is utterly humiliating for them. Their fragile ego is collapsing under the weight of an immense loss of control and a profound fear of stagnation. They relied entirely on a script where they were your superiors. Now they realize they are no longer your peers, and they never were. Metaphorically, they are sitting in the cheap bleachers, eating stale popcorn, angrily watching you win the championship game on the field they tried to ban you from. It looks incredibly goofy and intensely tragic. Their fear and their frantic energy stem from the deep, crushing realization of this permanent power dynamic shift. They thought they were the main characters, but your success has relegated them to the role of angry extras in the background of your blockbuster movie. They are deeply intimidated by the company you now keep, because they know that those elite minds would see right through their fragile, insecure behavior in 5 seconds flat. They see the respect, but not the integrity. They see the elevation, but not the gravity. They are permanently locked out of your new reality, their faces pressed aggressively against the glass, violently forced to watch you feast at a table they can never sit at. Number 14. You have achieved the ultimate, unassailable spiritual liberation by making them and their actions entirely irrelevant to your glorious future. The final, most devastating blow to a narcissist, a manipulator, or a deeply insecure betrayer is the realization that they simply do not matter to you anymore. For a long time after the betrayal, they likely occupied space in your mind. You wrestled with the anger, the confusion, and the sheer injustice of what they did. During that time, they felt a twisted sense of power, knowing that they had caused you pain and disrupted your peace. The psychology of the abuser thrives on significance. They would absolutely rather be hated by you than forgotten by you. But you did the heavy lifting. You did the agonizing shadow work. You healed. You focused your energy entirely on your own alignment and your divine calling. Let us deeply contrast your total peaceful, authentic, hard-earned internal alignment with their desperate, clawing, borrowed, insecure, and performative need for relevance. You crossed an invisible threshold where their existence ceased to have any gravitational pull on your life whatsoever. You do not hate them. You are entirely indifferent to them. You do not need an apology from them. You do not need them to admit they were wrong. And you certainly do not need to see them fail in order to feel good about your own success. The deep psychology behind their current meltdown is a terrifying loss of control and an inescapable fear of permanent stagnation. Their fragile ego relied on a script where they were eternally tethered to your emotional state. This complete detachment is the most terrifying thing they have ever encountered. It means they have zero leverage. Metaphorically, they are desperately trying to operate a remote control to a television that you unplugged, packed up, and threw out the window years ago. It looks profoundly goofy, frantic, and entirely tragic. You have taken your energy completely offline from their dramatic, low-vibrational server. You are busy building, expanding, and conversing with minds that operate on a global, visionary scale. When you look back at the betrayal now, you do not see a tragedy. You see a highly necessary eviction notice from a level of life you were wildly overqualified for. They see the liberation, but not the forgiveness. They see the distance, but not the profound inner peace. You have achieved total liberation. You have proven that their worst was not enough to stop your best. They are frantically screaming into the void, trying to remain relevant in a story that has completely, unapologetically moved on without them. When you zoom out and look at the absolute totality of this situation, one profound truth becomes impossible to ignore. Your physical actions, your resources, and your temporary setbacks were never the actual target of their attack. The target was always your internal energy, your divine alignment, and the unshakable peace that you possess. The people who betrayed you knew that they could not generate that kind of light on their own. So they attempted to extinguish yours in a desperate bid to plunge the room into a darkness where they could finally feel comfortable in their own mediocrity. But they failed to realize that you are not a candle that can be blown out by a gust of toxic wind. You are an entire sun. Your resilience in the face of absolute monstrosity has not only secured your ultimate victory, but it has broadcasted your value to the very top tiers of human awareness. The elite minds, the true builders, and the quiet observers of power see you clearly. They are deeply impressed, not just by what you have built, but by the fire you had to walk through to build it. You must remember that you never have to stoop down to explain yourself, to defend your honor, or to prove your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You do not need to perform for their validation or seek any form of petty revenge. The universe has already handled the scorekeeping, and the scoreboard is blindingly obvious. Your only job now is to continue honoring your internal architecture. Keep trusting your intuition, keep building your empire in silence, and keep moving with the authentic, unapologetic power of someone who knows exactly who they are and who they belong to. Let them drown in the frantic, exhausting performance of their own making. Let them deal with the heavy, tragic consequences of betting against a destiny that was written by the divine. You just keep walking forward, head held high, completely unbothered, and entirely unstoppable. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, drop a comment with what point hit you hardest, and share this video with someone who needs the reminder. Stay chosen, stay blessed.